My daughter Millie, she's gotten so much into puzzles over the last wee while. This was the first Christmas present I bought last year. I bought it for her, and she's kind of moved on already, bless her heart. But in January, I came home while I was at work. She was still on school holidays one day, and she had this little, not this one, but she had this little 100-piece puzzle. And on the floor of the lounge, she yells to me before I even come in the door. She comes, and if you know Millie, she's super excitable, and she comes running to me and like in a real like violent voice. She's like, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy! I've done this puzzle so many times, like 13 times. I've just pulled it apart, and I watch her. She picks it up. It didn't have like a backing, it just was the puzzle was itself. She picks it up and she sort of smooshes it in her hands so it all falls apart, and then she's putting it back together. And she did it really fast. So I was really impressed. And so she's so cute. So I bought her this 300-piece puzzle for Christmas. Now it's just something from Kmart. It was like $5. It's super tacky, but I saw it and I was like, it's actually, I don't know if you can see it. It's a bunch of animals in Africa. It's a real photo, I think. And they're just sort of taking a selfie of themselves. And I just thought it was funny and got lots of detail. So, those kind of puzzles are easy. We get lots of detail. But because I was getting into puzzles with Millie, it got me into puzzles, right? So on our January holiday, I said to Liv, we were down in my mum and dad's place in Taupo, and sorry, I was just so proud of my pronunciation there, I forgot what I was saying. I was just playing it back in my head, like that was all right. Was it all right? Thank you. Anyway, so I said to Liv, we found this big 1,000-piece puzzle there. I mean, 1,000 pieces. This is a granddaddy of puzzles. For me, I don't know, 1,000 pieces for you might be child's play. Are there bigger puzzles than 1,000 pieces? Because I saw that. You be quiet. For me, it was the biggest puzzle I've ever seen in my life. I can't believe people would do puzzles like that long. Anyway, so we brought it out. We thought it'd be fun. We thought it'd be romantic. And so we would get into it. And here was our sort of strategy. We figured that, I think this is probably what everybody does, but we thought the best thing to do first, and this took us about an hour, was to separate all the pieces that had a straight edge from the pieces that were the middle part, right? And we figured that sounds good. I mean, we're pretty versed in puzzles, so we knew what we were doing. I pretend like I was a beginner, but we've done a few in our time, 500 pieces. Anyway, so we get into it. That took a long time. We eventually found the four corners, and then we kind of, with this big mess over here, all the middle pieces, we were like, well, what can we do about this? So we sort of arranged them into what I would consider like different color smudges. Like they look like they might end up in the same part of the board. This is a red, this looks like a person's face, and this is a bit of city. And what happened was we went to the edges. Now Liv, she immediately delegates to me the top edge, right? Has anybody here done a puzzle, a 1,000-piece puzzle, where the whole flipping top third of the puzzle is just pure straight blue sky? No clouds, no detail, not even a different shade of the color blue, just a million pieces of the exact same thing. So Liv's having this lovely time getting 3 edges done, all this lovely detail, and I'm fumbling along with just the top edge. This is taking us a couple of hours. I developed a bit of a system after time. I realized what I did was I got all the male pieces together, all the female pieces together, and what I did was I grabbed one male piece and I just scrolled through all the female pieces, just one by one, figuring when it finally found its like soulmate, then I was like, cool, and then I'd do the vice versa, and I don't know, I thought it was a pretty good system, but I was literally going blind. One time I'd fit a piece and I'd be like, this bit doesn't feel like it fits, but it's the best I've got. And then I'd get 6 or 7 pieces down the line, and I'd realize, no, that's definitely wrong. And I'd go back, and then suddenly all those 7 pieces, I'd have to throw out and start again. And anyway, Liv was having the time of her life. I was so frustrated, and eventually we got there. But eventually, we didn't really get there, because what actually happened was we realized at about 11 p.m., way past my bedtime, that there were missing pieces. Whole night spent, and then we realized we would trawl through all the puzzle pieces again and again to make sure. but there were glaringly big gaps, and we couldn't even finish the outside frame. Heartbreaking. We were just like, what's the point of doing a puzzle with missing pieces? There's no point, right? So we threw it in the rubbish. In fact, it's way more dramatic. I don't know if you guys know this, Mum and Dad, but I'm really sorry. There's missing pieces of that old puzzle. I threw it in the rubbish now. I'll buy you a new one. We didn't actually throw it in the rubbish because I was so frustrated and I get a little bit dramatic. I threw it out the window. And then in the morning, I put it in the recyclable bin outside. But anyway, we went to bed pretty disappointed. Whole night wasted. The next morning, I was reading my Bible. This is open. Has somebody been drinking from this? Or has it just been ready for me? Wow, thanks, guys. That's so next level. So I realized when I was reading my Bible, I was like, actually, maybe, I kind of had this thought, maybe the whole night wasn't wasted. Because it occurred to me that I should, and I don't always get this, but it occurred to me I should write down some of the quirks and the experiences that I'd had the previous night. Because one day they might be, I don't know, they might mean something meaningful. And I thought maybe I could use it in a stupid sermon. Next minute, here we are tonight. So the whole thing really got me thinking about puzzles and life, right? And so tonight is my thoughts on puzzles. The puzzle picture on the front of the box is such a perfect picture. I mean, this one's a bit ridiculous, but you get what I mean. It's perfect, right? It's complete. It's untouched. It's beautiful. It's exciting. It's vibrant. It's clear. It's perfect. You can feel it. You can smell it. I mean, you can smell that. That's whoo. And the puzzle that I was talking about in Taupo, that was I've ruined my pronunciation now. But it was actually this beautiful image of Monte Carlo. Now, I've never been to Monte Carlo, but I swear I could smell the roses. I could hear the sound of the fountain that was in the middle of the frame. I could hear the sounds of the people walking on the street, you know. They're yelling at each other, hey, give me a pizza, huh? Because half of them are Italian, I think, and the other half are French, I think. So they were like, oh, je suis, baguette, you know. And all my thoughts in my head, they're often quite racist. But so we were having a great time doing those. I mean, the picture on the front of the box is a clear, beautiful picture, right? And it's crisp and clear. And then what happens? You open it and you sort of tip it them all out. And oh, I missed. And thanks, guys. We're going to have to clean that up afterwards. Yeah, it's going to be me, I know. Together. And it's a mess, right? That's what I'm looking at. It's a disaster. Half the time you can't even see the clear picture colors. You're looking at that sort of mute brown, boring color on the back. And it's chaos. It's so incomplete. We now have to put this together. But it's like, where do I even start? And when God gives us a dream or a word for our lives, or a promise or a word for a situation in our life, it's often just the same. He gives you a purpose. He gives you a calling. It's so real. It's so vibrant. It's like it's 4D. It's the front of the box experience. You can see it. You can smell it. And it's the outside of the box experience. Maybe it's something for your personal life. Maybe it's something for your business, for a ministry, for healing, for salvation for your family, for your kids coming back to the Lord, for a spouse, for something that you know God is calling you to do. And you know, I'm not referring, I suppose I'm talking about dreams. I'm not referring to those kind of dreams you have where you dream to have a nice boat one day or like a better car. I mean, nothing wrong with those dreams, but I'm talking about those authentic God calling dreams when God speaks to you and gives you a clear vision or a picture for your life, you know. And they can be big things, they can be little things. They don't have to be big things. It can be a dream to be faithful. It can be a dream to be a good father. It can be a dream to, you know, be less angry. Dreams can be big, dreams can be small, but it could be to do something awesome for God's kingdom. You see it clearly in your heart, in your mind's eye. God often gives us the outside of the puzzle picture in our heart. For me, I remember as a 12-year-old boy in a church service at a youth camp being given a word spoken for my life. There's this traveling preacher who he didn't know me from a bar of soap, But in a Holy Ghost moment, he pulled me out of a crowd and he spoke destiny over my life. I'll never forget it. God in that moment called me to be a preacher, to work in church, in the ministry, to reach hundreds of thousands of people. I think of what we're going to be doing through all the people we're going to be able to reach through all the media we're doing. Man, I feel like I'm right where I'm supposed to be, but it was incredible. And I'll never forget even the little things when God called me as a 12-year-old boy, even the little details. Like he said, you'd use humor. And this guy didn't know me at all. But God knew that I love to make people laugh. Like I remember the little details. And I'll never forget, in fact, I've written it down now, but God has built on that word over the years, and he's added to it with more words, and he's added more context to it. He's fleshed it out as I've just tried to stay faithful to the calling. So God often gives us that outside-of-the-box experience, that picture that you see, that the view that you can see from the top of the mountain that you're going to get to one day. And then it's like he dumps all the pieces out of the box. And you just stare at all the pieces. And you go, what do I make of this? How do I get to that picture that you gave me, God? And he says, step by step, in faithfulness, in obedience, in determination, in grit, in faith, in my strength, piece by piece. Now with him, you start building that picture. And if there's anybody here tonight that has a clear picture in their heart of something that God has for you, something that you're going to do with your life, you see it so clearly, but all you have is this absolute mess of pieces, and you don't know what you're doing or how to even put them together to see that picture become real in your life, then tonight is for you. And maybe you had a clear picture, but maybe 2020 came along or in 2021 and messed it up a little bit, and now you're confused. Or maybe you're in a season of life that looks nothing like the picture that God originally gave you. In fact, that you're holding a piece in your hand and you're like, what does this have to do with this? Maybe the picture that you have in your hand looks nothing like the picture in your heart. Hey, I know very well the exact place you're at. Tonight is for you. Perhaps for you, the pieces seem out of whack. You're confused and not sure which piece goes into the next piece. You're feeling your way through blind like I was with that blue sky. Call it the blue sky moment, which is actually something else, which is actually a really positive term, so it doesn't work actually. But you know what I'm talking about, these moments, you have no idea how this piece that I'm holding right now is going to fit into the next piece. And sometimes you hold it with fear, trembling, going, because you know you've got to step out in faith to connect it to the next piece and hope that God's in all this. Slowly and painfully, one by one. Has anybody been in a situation or is in a situation like that? Cool. I've written this big sort of long sermon, as I can't help but do sometimes. Let's say it's for a Sunday morning, that includes a bunch of things that I found when I went looking through the scriptures for people in the Bible that I feel like could speak into this kind of situation in the context of puzzles. And so I wanted to talk about Abraham, Joseph, Moses, and the Apostle Paul, but tonight I think we'll only have time for Joseph. But when God gives you a dream or a vision or a word or a promise, and then everything begins going in the opposite direction, we can take encouragement from Joseph. Let's get into it. Genesis 37. Joseph, being 17 years old, excuse me, I'd have a voiceover in that moment. It would be nice so I could drink. Being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought a bad report of them to his father. Look, the first introduction we get of Joseph is that he rats out his brothers. It literally immediately sets him up as like a dude that they don't, he's not very likable. Except his dad really loved him, as we see in a moment. It says, now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children because he was the son of his old age. And I think it was the son of his favorite wife, right? Also, he made him a tunic of many colors. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him. Now Joseph had a dream. This is his outside of the box moment. God gives him a clear picture. It's amazing. And it's so clear. And he tells it to his brothers, which I think was probably not the best move when you already know your brothers don't like you, especially when your dream is this. he said to them, please hear this dream which I have dreamed. There we were, binding sheaves in the field, which are wheat, right? Sheaves of wheat that he's tying up. Then behold, my sheaf arose and also stood upright, and indeed your sheaves stood all around and bowed down to my sheaf. And his brothers said to him, shall you indeed reign over us? They were just like, or shall you indeed have, dominion over us? So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Then he learned his lesson. Just kidding. He dreamed still another dream and immediately told it to his brothers again and his parents. Said, look, I have dreamed another dream. And this time the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars bowed down to him. Now he's saying all the brothers bowed down and mum and dad. So he told it to his father and his brothers. His father rebuked him and said to him, oh, Joseph, what is this dream that you have dreamed? Are your mother and I going to bow down to you and your brother's going to bow down to you? And his brothers envied him, but his father kept the matter in mind. I think that's interesting. Like, he was like, a little bit, but then he was also like, oh, I'll watch that. Later, Joseph was sent to check on his brothers. I'm just going to skip through a little bit as they were working, right? Verse 18 says, now when they saw him afar off, even before he came near them, they conspired against him to kill him. Then they said to one another, look, this dreamer is coming. Come therefore, let us now kill him, cast him into some pit, and we shall say some wild beast has devoured him. And this next line, I never have noticed until today. We shall see what will become of his dreams. Wow. That's gone over my head before. Wow, they had the attitude that let's kill his dreams. It wasn't even about Joseph. It was about his dream that God had given him. They had the gumption to think that they had the authority to cut off Joseph's dream that was given from God. Wow, they were going to try and kill his dream. Whoa. Anyway, Reuben heard it. Thank God for Reuben. And he delivered him out of their hands. In fact, he was going to try save Joseph. He said, let us not kill him. And Reuben said, shed no blood, cast him into this pit which is in the wilderness, and do not lay a hand on him. He planned to come back later and rescue him out. But as it came to pass, when Joseph had come to his brothers, they stripped Joseph of his tunic, the tunic of many colors that was on him. Then they took him and cast him into a pit. Then Midianite traders passed by, so the brothers pulled Joseph up. They kind of changed his plan, jumped down to 28, verse 28, and lifted him out of the pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. They sold him into slavery. And these guys took Joseph off to Egypt. You know, it talks about how Reuben was, I think, not there at the time. And then he comes back and Joseph's not in the pit anymore. He's like, no! So everyone's plan got kind of messed up. Certainly Joseph's. Genesis 39. Skipping ahead. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. And Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. He was now this guy's slave. The Lord, listen to this. The Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man. And he was in the house of his master, the Egyptians. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all he did to prosper in his hand, even as a slave. Joseph found favor in his sight and served him. Joseph was faithful. Joseph served. Joseph was excellent. Skipping ahead, Joseph had a mix-up with Potiphar's wife who lied and accused him of trying to sleep with her. And then all this kerfuffle ends up meaning that Joseph gets put into a royal prison. He's been in a pit. He's been in Potiphar's house. Now he's in prison. But even in prison, look at this. The Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy. He gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever they did there, it was his doing. The keeper of the prison he gave him a job. He did not look into anything that was under Joseph's authority. He didn't micromanage Joseph because he thought Joseph's doing a great job. Obviously, anything this guy does turns to gold. So I'm just going to let him be him. And the Lord was with him, the Bible says, and whatever he did, the Lord made it prosper. Skipping ahead for the last little bit for the sake of time, Joseph ends up interpreting the dreams of a couple of guys who were in prison with him, right? And they came to pass. And because of that, he ends up having he ends up being invited to the Pharaoh's court to help Pharaoh with his dreams, which he interprets. And Pharaoh is so impressed with Joseph's wisdom. And even as Pharaoh says, the spirit of the Lord that was inside him, which is interesting, of an Egyptian, he says this in Genesis 41. Inasmuch as God has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. He says, you shall be over my house, and all my people shall be ruled according to your word. Only in regard to the throne will I be greater than you." And Pharaoh said to Joseph, "See, I have set you over all the land of Egypt." That is the original rags to riches story. Literally, no one in the history of the world has gone from zero to hero that fast. He was literally in prison, in chains, and then an hour later, he is the second in charge of like the world at that time. That's amazing, right? In a moment. That's an ascension. Oh, cool background. Eventually, what happens is his father and his brothers and his sisters and his mother and stuff, I'm not sure about his mother, but his father and his brothers and stuff come to Egypt in the midst of a famine, desperate for food, and without even realizing that it's Joseph, the brother that they tried to kill years back, that they got rid of, they bow down to him and, of course, fulfill the very dream they thought they had killed. It all came to pass exactly as God had given it to him. Amazing. The picture that God gave him, the dream, came to pass just as God had planned it. And this is what I got out of this story for us tonight in the context of puzzles. Sometimes the random places you end up in, the random directions your life ends up going in, is actually exactly the places that you are meant to be. Joseph had dreams that God gave him, that he would be a person of influence, that his brothers and his parents would one day bow down to him. Then he becomes addicted to pee. What? Look, I told you already. He's put in the pit. He can't avoid pee. He gets a slave in Potiphar's house. Then he's in prison. Then he becomes friends with Pharaoh, which it doesn't work quite as well, but it still starts with P, but it's PH. So it's almost cool. And his brothers end up bowing down to him. But here's the thing. Imagine how Joseph must have felt in the pit, or as a slave, or in the prison. God, this makes no sense. This looks nothing like the picture you've given me. I'm holding this piece in my hand, and it's random, and you're wrong, God. You've got me in the wrong place. These pieces are not connected at all. This last piece doesn't connect to this piece. It's not going to connect to another piece. I'm stuffed up. You've stuffed me up. This isn't going to plan. But what I saw for the first time really as I clicked, when I watched this, Joseph would have never ended up seeing his dream come to life if he hadn't been in that prison figuring out somebody else's dream, right? He would have never got a court with Pharaoh had he not been in Pharaoh's prison. He would have never been in Pharaoh's prison if he had not been in Potiphar's house, who was a captain of the guard. He would have never been in Potiphar's house if he had not been shoved into a pit and sold into slavery. Every single piece that for Joseph in the moment felt like it wasn't connected, felt like it was random, when you look at it from God's perspective, was actually profoundly, deeply connected to the dream that God had put in his heart. While Joseph might have been like, this doesn't make any sense, God. God's like, you just wait, son. I'm going to show you. You think this bit isn't connected to this bit, isn't connected to this bit. They're all connected, and I'm taking you to the place where I promised you I would take you. Whoa. All the puzzle pieces perfectly fit together. Sometimes when you find yourself in a completely random place, sometimes a terrible place, sometimes you're in the exact place that God wants you to be, to propel you towards the plan He has for you, your destiny. And even though you think, how on earth does this piece connect to the next piece? I believe, and I prophesy over you, or at least I hope that you'll have enough faith to believe that one day in the clever sovereignty of God, you'll see that there was a master plan and they were all connected. So rejoice in the pit. Rejoice in the prison. God is moving you towards your destiny. If He gave you a word or a promise, hold on to it. Stay faithful. He has a plan. Hold on to it. This isn't one of those messages that applies to everybody. But if God has spoken to you, if God has put a word in your heart or a dream in your heart, a vision, hold on to it. That's not your thoughts. That's from God. And so I tell you, wherever you find yourself, whilst you might feel like this piece I'm just blind. I'm just on that sky piece. I can't see the wood for the trees. There's no detail. I got no reference point for how this piece fits into the next piece. Trust that God knows exactly what he's doing, that he is building a puzzle out of your life that's going to look exactly one day like the picture he put in your heart. One of my favorite scriptures in all of the Bible is one of the last things that's said in the last chapter of Genesis. And I love it because it's a picture of God's heart towards humanity and his children. You know, everybody fantasizes about a moment where you can say, I told you so to your haters. Do you know what I mean? Come on. I see that. All the people that said, no. All the people that tried to kill your dream. You don't lie to me. You've thought about, man, one day I'm going to, Jake Paul. I don't know. But Joseph had that opportunity. He literally could have said the coolest thing. I told you so. You guys were wrong, losers. But he had this, but instead of heaping revenge or poisonous, hateful words upon his brothers, and remember, they were literally going to try to kill him, to kill his dream. Joseph delivers this banger of a line to his brothers, one of my favorite scriptures. It's one of the last bits of Genesis. He says this to them, but as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring it about as it is this day, to save many people alive. As for you, what the enemy meant for evil, God has turned it around for good. Not just for my good, but to save many people. Joseph's position saved, hundreds of thousands of lives. And I prophesy that over you and over me, that the good that's going to come out of your life, God turning the things around, is not just going to be for your benefit, but it's going to save many people. You're going to be blessed to be a blessing. What the enemy meant for evil, God will turn it around for good, for his glory. Wow. And we have to be patient and we have to trust God even in the midst of pain, even when in the pit or the prison. Sometimes the only pieces we have to hold on to are faith and patience. And sometimes we look at, in the middle of a disaster, faith and patience, these pieces are lame. But what does the Bible say? It says it's through faith and patience that we inherit the promises of God. Those are the two most powerful pieces you can hold in your hand. Don't negate, don't downplay faith and patience. Hold on to it. Be faithful, hold on to it, be patient. That's all you need to inherit the promises of God. As I bring this to a close, and we're going to maybe pray for some people. The whole thing really spoke to me, I think, maybe. Obviously, when God spoke this to me, and as I was writing all this stuff down and reading through Joseph and whatnot, he spoke to me because of this. I don't want to make a big deal of it, but this arthritis thing I'm going through at the moment, sometimes I have wanted to, and I have yelled out to God and gone, why have you allowed this to happen to me? All I've ever done is try to serve you. And it has been a puzzle. And I've thought, God, how does this connect to my destiny? The dreams and the visions you've placed in my heart as a 12-year-old boy. To the words you've spoken over me. What has this got to do with my purpose? If anything, I feel like it's slowing me down. Anybody know? Anybody? But now, and here's the thing. Now, I can't help but think, what if I was wrong about this puzzle piece I'm holding? What if it's not random or not completely disconnected to my destiny? What if actually I'm like Joseph in the pit right now? And as I say this, I want you to hear it as it's intended. This is not about me or my story, but hear it prophetically about how it relates to your circumstance, what God's speaking to you about right now. What if I'm Joseph? I want you to ponder that for yourself. What if one day I find out that what I'm going through right now is not random and disconnected, but actually profoundly connected to my destiny? Ask that for yourself. Could it be? Could this be a Joseph moment? That in the moment feels completely wrong and this piece doesn't fit. But one day you'll look back in hindsight and see God's hand in it all and see actually what was deeply connected to your calling. Because for me, I'm believing that as I step into the healing that I know God has for me, that I will step into an authority in the spirit realm to see healing for other people. That's what I'm praying for, because there has to be purpose in pain. Come on, somebody. We have to believe that it's not random, that it's connected rather to my calling. It's connected to your purpose. It's connected to your destiny. Have faith. Have faith to believe that tonight. I'll finish with these. Have faith and be faithful. Have faith and be faithful. I believe we're called to stay faithful, and God will be fruitful. Stay faithful and obedient to God, faithful to your family, faithful to the calling on your life, faithful to your church, faithful to your giving. Keep giving, keep sacrificing, keep going forward, never giving up, keep laying your life down, keep surrendering yourself, offering yourself up as a sacrifice. Keep making it all about God and not about you. It's not over, no matter what season you're in. I look at Joseph last time. We look at him every step of the way. God blessed him because he was faithful. It says he served Potiphar faithfully, and God blessed his work. Same in the prison. Everywhere he went, he found favor because of his faithfulness. And I want that to be a word for someone tonight, that even in the prison, even in the pit, God can prosper you. And God can give you favor. Even in the worst season of your life, God can still prosper you. God can still give you favor. God can still work in your life. Don't give up on God. God can prosper you in the pit, in the prison. Man, hold on to that picture God gave you. You are going to face opposition in your journey towards your purpose. In fact, if you don't face opposition, I'd argue, well, anything worth doing in life is going to come with opposition. I'll frame it that way. Don't be discouraged by it. In fact, be encouraged if you face opposition. The devil doesn't want you to fulfill the things that God has spoken over you. But remember that what the enemy means for evil, God will turn it around for good. He intends it for good. And though sometimes you feel like you're stuck on a sky piece with nothing on how to go to the next piece, and you feel like sometimes you lose momentum, you want to be smashing it like Livy on those bottom three corners, just nailing it, having a great time. Woo! But sometimes you're stuck on that same stupid. You know what it's like when you look around at other people and you see that they're smashing it, and you're stuck on the same stupid piece. We all have those moments. But I prophesy over you tonight that you're getting your momentum back. Your momentum is coming back. Breakthrough is coming. And you're moving on in this puzzle. And you will see the picture completed. And you will see the view from the top as we climb this mountain. And I believe that you will see the goodness of God in the land of the living. Amen. If you believe it, why don't you stand up?